and welcome back to Bookish Theories. In today's video I would like to talk about BTS's Map of the Soul tattoos, focusing on a little breakdown and analysis of their meaning and what they can tell us about the Map of the Soul concept. Now, in the past few months, BTS dived into their Map of the Soul by portraying their eternal journey, many memorable performances, but one interesting detail that left me wondering was their decision to include temporary tattoos in some of their stages. Jimin and J-Hope sported them back in Map of the Soul 1, and more recently J-Hope and RM had some tattoos during the Melon Music Awards. And since the majority of these tattoos are phrases written in Latin, I thought it would be interesting to take a look at them to see what they can tell us about the concept itself. Now, the reason I want to do that is because BTS usually includes tattoos as a way to clue us in on some hidden aspects of their world building. If back in the On era, these tattoos were used to define the main idea at the core of the album, in videos like Danger and Reflection, RM's tattoos were used as foreshadowing and provided a visual representation of the inner journey of the character. And right off the bat, this idea is very interesting because using tattoos might imply a lot more than an aesthetic choice. You see, even if to some people tattoo art may seem like a relatively recent addition to global culture, as a matter of fact, tattoos are a form of art that has been used as a medium of self-expression for over 6 millennia. Throughout history, tattoos have been a defining aspect of many cultures that could express traditional customs, religious beliefs, social rank, or even the transition from one stage of life to another. So one thing that we can say for sure about tattoos is that they are a medium that people have been using to define themselves both in relation to the world that surrounds them and in relation to their personal beliefs and ideology. Due to the permanent nature of this form of art, tattoos can be seen as a medium of transformation that modifies the body in order to bring to the surface a specific aspect of our identity. So in the context of the Map of the Soul, tattoos are a very fitting addition to the performance because the symbolism behind them heavily rely on the interaction between the exterior world of the body and the interior world of the psyche. You see, according to the Philadelphia Jung Institute, tattoos can imply a reconnection with the self. They can be seen as a physical manifestation of the inner workings of somebody's mind, and they trigger a visible transformation that is essentially achieved through pain. But much like what we saw in BTS, experiencing this pain not only can help the individual with self-expression and self-realization, but can also bring healing either by covering wounds or by portraying positive images that are significant to the individual. What this means in this context is that even if BTS might have included tattoos because they look cool, another possible interpretation is that the symbolism behind this form of art is also extremely relevant to the core message that the boys are trying to convey. The link between body and mind, the transformation of the person through pain, the individual overcoming their difficulties and bearing those marks with pride, these are all motifs that BTS have explored in the past and are still exploring with the Map of the Soul. So them using tattoos not only can be seen as a manifestation of their inner transformation, but also as a way to clue us in on what their journey actually entails. Now, in the Map of the Soul 1 concerts, the first member that appeared with tattoos is Hosok, who had Hope written on his shoulder and 2 tattoos written in Latin on his arm. Now, when it comes to the Hope tattoo, the meaning behind it needs very little explanation. Hope is a concept that represents him and a value that J-Hope wants to embody through his name and through his art. So right off the bat, you can see that the symbolism of tattoos is already in full effect here, because Hope defines J-Hope identity and the tattoo is a visual representation of this aspect of himself. If we follow this logic, this means that the same idea applies to the other tattoos as well, and as a matter of fact it does, because the other 2 tattoos that we see are Fiat Lux and Oriri ex Dolore. Now, Fiat Lux is a Latin phrase that means let there be light, and this is a reference to the events portrayed in the Genesis, where on the first day God created light and divided it from darkness. Now, besides the obvious religious origins of this sentence, Fiat Lux is a phrase that implies the contrast between light and darkness, as well as the agency that is necessary in order to create light in the first place. Bear in mind, in the original story, God speaks light into existence, He creates it, and because He creates it, light is now something that exists. So if we apply this concept to the Map of the Soul, Fiat Lux is a tattoo that implies the importance of actively creating light out of the darkness of our life. You see, if we consider the biblical contrast between light and darkness, we can say that in the context of the map of the soul, darkness represents the unconscious and light is the conscious mind that arises from the depths of our identity. But just like the tattoo implies, in order to become conscious of ourselves and the outside world, people need to actively spread this light and look for ways to achieve enlightenment. Fiat Lux here is a tattoo that implies that we need to act, we need to work to bring light into existence, and we need to take the time to become self-aware and expand our consciousness. So in this case, it's not a coincidence that it's J-Hope the one who has this tattoo, because in the map of the soul, Hobie embodies the archetype of the ego, which is the part of our conscious mind that includes our thoughts, memories, and emotions. If the shadow is part of the darkness, the ego is the little light that guides us throughout our life. And this makes sense because our memories, thoughts, and emotions are the only tool that we have in order to understand the outside world. Since our ego is so connected to the outside world, however, logic says that the more experience we gain, the more our consciousness grows. So what this sentence means is that in order to fulfill ourselves, we actively need to follow the light of the ego in order to expand this light and gain a new understanding of ourselves. As Jung himself has pointed out, however, there is no coming to consciousness without pain, and this brings us to orire ex dolore, which is a Latin phrase that means rising from pain. Now this sentence here is actually a twist on the phrase orire ex cinere, which means rising from the ashes and is a reference to the phoenix being born again from its own remains. This is a concept that connects us right back to songs like Black Swan and On, because much like the tattoo implies, if Black Swan portrayed the first death of the artist, On showed us BTS accepting the pain and rising from it as a new individual. What this means in the context of the map of the soul is that even if our journey towards enlightenment is a difficult one, experiencing pain is part of the process and something that we can overcome by accepting it as part of our life. And this is because, as Jung himself has stated, we are not what happened to us, but rather what we choose to become. As Outro Ego explained, even if BTS's journey was painful and sad, without these experiences they wouldn't have become the people that they are today. So instead of being overcome by this pain, BTS chose to embrace it and rise from it like a phoenix from its ashes. Now this concept is also explored in yet another of Hobie's tattoos, because at the Melon Music Awards, J-Hope also had Luctor et emergo, which is a phrase that means I struggle and emerge. Now this sentence here is actually the official motto of a province in the Netherlands that refers to the struggle of the land against the waters that threatens to submerge it. But in the context of the map of the soul, this phrase can once again be applied to the struggle of consciousness as it emerges from the waters of the unconscious. Much like light is created from darkness and people can rise from pain, our conscious mind emerges from the unconscious in spite of the pain, but also because of it. So even if we might have lived through some negative experiences, our struggles don't stop us from growing, because it's also because of them that we were able to become the people that we are today. Now, to a certain extent, this idea also implies that our journey towards enlightenment largely depends on our relationship with the outside world, because even if it's up to us to decide how to deal with our experiences, at the end of the day, our interaction with the world shapes our identity depending on the situation. If we're talking about a negative experience, this experience can bring us pain but also make us grow, but the same applies to the positive experiences as well. And this brings us to the last tattoo on Hobie's arm, which spells the word plaudite. Now, plaudite is an imperative that means applaud, and this verb once again connects us to the ego concept through the idea of recognition. You see, according to Jung, existence is only real when it is conscious to somebody, so in this context, plaudite refers to the importance of the audience in defining the identity of an artist. Much like BTS themselves have said on multiple occasions, BTS exists because of ARMY. They became so successful because the audience acknowledged them, believed in them, and helped them achieve their dreams. So plaudite is a reminder of that, because BTS were able to realize themselves thanks to the people that cheer for them. Now next up we have Jimin, who had the words Illecebra and Arcanos written on his palms during his performance of Filter. Now this one is actually very interesting because if we look at these words from the grammatical perspective, Illecebra and Arcanus should not be put together. You see, like many modern languages, Latin is a language with grammatical gender, and this means that most of the times words are either masculine or feminine. Illecebra, for instance, is a female noun that can mean temptation, enticement, or allure. But on the other hand, Arcanus is a male adjective that means secret or mysterious. So even if the meaning of Jimin's tattoos is basically secret temptation, this secret temptation is also grammatically incorrect. In order for this phrase to be correct, it should be Illecebra Arcana because the noun is feminine and the adjective should be feminine as well. And yet in this case the masculine and the feminine are mixed together, and I think that this mistake was actually intentional. You see, in the map of the soul, we find 4 main archetypes, 3 of which are the persona, the shadow, and the ego, which were all largely discussed in BTS's map of the soul, and the last one being none other than the anima, which is the female side of a man, and that seemingly was left undiscussed. Just because the anima took a backseat, however, this doesn't mean that she is not present, because as a matter of fact, there are many clues that hint at the idea that Jimin might actually be the anima that we are looking for. You see, according to Jung, the anima is supposed to be the hidden feminine side of a man that acts as mediator between the conscious and the unconscious, and this archetype is often linked to sensitivity and intuition, but also to sensuality and desire. Now, right off the bat, Jimin is a great fit for the anima because he perfectly embodies all these attributes put together. But the gender-bending concept of the anima is also portrayed in other instances as well, because if in the Melon performance of Black Swan he played a female role in BTS's journey in the unconscious, in Boy With Love he acted as a male counterpart to Halsey. The real giveaway that Jimin is the anima, however, is actually filter itself, because according to Jung, the anima is often associated to a veil of illusions that cover the deepest parts of our unconscious. The anima here is literally a filter, and Jimin embodies this secret temptation, which is why the tattoos on his hands are both masculine and feminine. Now, last but not least, we have RM, who had the word Principium tattooed on his neck during the Melon Music Awards performance. Now, Principium is a word that means both beginning and principle, and this tattoo might actually be a pun that refers to the process of individuation, which is the final goal of the map of the soul. You see, in his works, Jung actually used the word principium to define the principle of individuation, and in BTS's map of the soul, this journey started with Namjoon back in Persona. So in this context, Namjoon embodies the beginning of the principle, which actually makes him the principium of the principium. Since BTS's journey is an eternal cycle, however, this beginning is also the ending of this video, so I hope you guys enjoyed it, and if you did, please think about liking and subscribing. As always, thank you so much for watching, guys. I'll see you next time. Bye bye!